Hi, everybody. Russ and the West Ham. Oh, something there. Hi, everybody. Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you're all safe. Well, happy Friday. Well done. Another week has passed. Congratulations. And another weekend where West Ham can't ruin it. So, yeah, always good to look forward to. Keep an eye on all the social channels. The next day or so, we'll be announcing an initiative we're working with the Iron Sports Food Banks. So it'd be great for your support on that. It'd be really, really cool. And I think people will really dig it as well. Dig it? Where am I from? The 70s. Hey, you're going to dig it. But we've been to Hammer's headlines in association with the KUMB.com. Boys, lunchtime today did my Have You Say Friday, putting the world to rights, all things West Ham. Internationals, Vladimir Sufal, he's injured, but he's still going to go and play in the Czech Republic games, and how does that work out and that type of thing. And we've got 3 stories today. The first one is about our Europa Conference League quarter-final opponents rather. Gent, I suppose they are hosting us first. Now, 2 bits of Gent news really. The first bit is it came out a couple of days ago that one Gent player has basically done Moyes' team talk for him ahead of the quarter-final clash. Gent are currently 4th in the Pro League with their 17 points adrift of league leaders Genk, who we played in the Europa League last year. Meanwhile, the Hammers obviously facing the potential prospect of relegation, as we currently sit 18th in the Premier League table. That's something that a Gent player has highlighted when speaking to the Belgian media. Hugo Kloepers has been speaking to Heit Nuvenbard. I didn't even blink in that one, about his side's European clash with West Ham. And the Gent forward responded when asked about his team's chances of making it through to the semi-finals of the Europa Conference League. He said, "We want to try to get a good starting position, and then we go to London. Hopefully we can go one round further. We are now in a relegation battle. Maybe they can play... They are now in a relegation battle. Maybe they can play to our advantage. But on the other hand, they've already come this far and they want to get everything out of it. They also don't play European football every year, so they certainly won't be underestimated. We watched the draw of the group. Everyone was quite satisfied." Waffling along, those Belgians. Plenty of waffle over there. So, West Ham aren't going to be underestimated by Gent. There we go. Nice. That's nice to see. There you go. So the team talk's already done for you boys. Thank you. Hopefully our position in the Premier League will give the Gent players a full sense of security, maybe. There was a tweet that went out from UEFA yesterday. West Ham have the longest winning streak in European club history, or something like that, in or British club. There was some stat that, because he'd won like 10 games in a row, we've had the best winning streak in the Europa competitions ever, or something ridiculous like that. Despite we were playing, in the 3rd tier, so to speak. But we'll see what happens there. It sounds like a case of, judging by Hugo's comments, they're thinking we're going to be a pushover. So let's show them we're not. Indeed. In terms of Gent themselves, in terms of their fan base, we know they're not going to be no pushovers at all. We don't take this time lightly at all. But many of us will probably fancy us to progress to the semi-final and our second European semi-final in as many years. But, what's quite interesting as well is, obviously, we'll be playing the second tie at home, the quarterfinals. Obviously, the first I've been in Gent in the 13th or 16th of April, and then the flip side the week after at London Stadium. But there's no doubt that the Gent fans are whetting their appetite to the thought of coming to London and playing West Ham at the London Stadium. After selling out their relegation for the second leg, Gent Twitter profile simply said "sold out" alongside a picture of their fans celebrating with the words "West Ham sold out. See you all in London." Obviously, meanwhile, West Ham are still waiting. Fans are still waiting for full details for our away allocation for the trip to Belgium, which will be the third time to visit the country in the last 2 seasons, having faced, as we say, Genk in the Europa League and Anderlecht in the group stages. So, and a fourth could be on the horizon. If Anderlecht beat AZ Alkmaar, we could be playing them in the semis. So it could be all going over to Belgium. Let's talk about Nikola Vlasic. Remember him? Nikola Vlasic. Obviously, he's had a season so far playing regular game time in Serie A for Torino, and has been on loan this season from the Hammers. There was no. It was obvious he was going to go on loan. There was no clear route for him to get any minutes, really, especially after the 8 new signings in the summer. He's played 23 out of 27 games for Torino this season. Only missed 4 in a row because he had a hamstring injury around quite recently, February, March time. Which he's recovered from now. As part of the deal that saw Vlasic leave on loan, an agreement was included that would include the possibility for the 25-year-old to sign for Torino permanently at the end of the season. Reports from Councillor Mercato are saying that while the Torino boss, Ivan Juric, who's also a Croatian, is keen on signing Vlasic permanently, a big factor could go down to whether the manager stays or not at the club beyond the end of the season himself. Before signing a new contract, he wants to know what his squad will look like next season before putting pen to paper on an agreement to his contract. His managerial contract runs out this summer, and he just wants to know, what he's signing up for. Fair enough. Reports suggest that Juric wants both Vlasic and attacking midfielder Alezic Marinchuk, who's currently on loan from Atalanta, to sign permanently. Although a double move would cost around 24 million quid, especially as they've already spent 15 million euros. 17 million euros on Ivan Ilic and Nemanja Radonjic, permanently from Hellas Verona and Marseille, respectively. So, because of that, the Torino director of football, the club president, are open to permanent moves for Vlasic and Marinchuk, but apparently they're trying to get as cheap a deal as possible for both of them because they're sort of already committed to spending, and then they basically haven't got a lot of money, to be honest. It was reported a fee for around 15 million euro for Vlasic was what we were looking for, but I imagine it could be considerably less, potentially, although offer considerably less. As I said, he's scored 4 goals in 23 appearances this year in Serie A. And although 3 of them came from his first 5 games, hit the ground running. And then, unfortunately, he's only scored 1 goal since. But obviously, I don't think we'll see Vlasic again in a claret and blue shirt. So I'm sure there'll be some agreement, but it's interesting to see that Torino are already spending money. It's also interesting to see that their manager has some sort of principles and he's not going to sign a new contract until he knows what his squad's going to look like. I want this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Am I going to get him yes or no? If it's a no, I'm not signing a new contract. That may kibosh anything that Torino want to do with West Ham about Vlasic, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see what happens in it. We'll see what happens. It's a strange thing at the moment with Vlasic. So similarly with someone like Arthur Masuaku and Brigittas as well. That was off, on, off, off, on. It was the hokey cokey of loan moves, and it looks like it's back on now. It looks like he will sign permanently with Brigittas very shortly. So the Hammers, obviously, we confirmed yesterday. We did it on the Hammers headlines that we'll be heading to the land down under for a pre-season tour in summer. Obviously, we face off against Perth Glory and Tottenham on the 15th and 18th of June, respectively. And, we haven't done an out of season, sort of an out of country pre-season tour for a long time. We know what it brings. It brings, a brand extension. We know it increases commercial revenues, commercial value of the club. I remember doing the Premier League Asia Trophy tournament. We've done America, various other places as well, but we haven't done it under Moisey, really. Now, the question is, if we're going to Australia, basically the other side of the world, who's signed that off? From a footballing perspective, we know Moyes doesn't like pre-season tours abroad, and he prefers to stay in Britain. You know, we've had the last 2-3 of his pre-seasons camps have been in St Andrews in Scotland, which is useful because Anton can pop along and say hello. And then they might do a couple of games, but they might be in Switzerland or France for a game and then come back. Not necessarily a pre-season tour, and certainly not one to the length of going all the way to Australia, for example. So if that is a case, and if in fact he has said, and he said he's very against going on foreign trips in pre-season, and he's resisted them in the past when they've been offered to him. I think there was an American trip as well. I know originally we were penciled in to do a Australia trip, apparently in the 2021 off season, but it was due to COVID. But was it? Would have Moyes agreed to it? I don't know. Could that mean that maybe Moyes isn't going to be in the summer? And they've already made plans ahead for a new manager. Similarly, I mean, look at Spurs. I mean, Spurs are going to be playing in this thing, this tournament. Conte's probably going to be in charge of them as well, so it's going to be quite an interesting time. It's a strange one, really. You know, either he's hasn't signed this off and he's very unhappy with it, or maybe all of a sudden he's modernised his views on pre-season tours abroad. Maybe, I don't know. It's very strange. I don't think he probably has. So only time will tell how that plays out. But it is a bit of a strange one. I mean, people say, I think Ludders in the comments said, oh, you know, don't people realise we're in a cost of living crisis? I think the assumption is not necessarily that West Ham fans, some will travel to Australia because with family and friends and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of expats in Australia. There's a big West Ham community as well, and in New Zealand as well, you know, potentially, and in the Far East, and you know, it's not as much of a commute as it is to go into London Stadium, for example. I think that's it. It's not necessarily assuming that Russell Hornchurch is going to fly to Perth to watch us play 2 friendly games and then come back. But still, it's a bizarre one, isn't it? Particularly with our history of injuries as well, particularly around pre-season, going on a 18-hour flight. I don't know what the flight is to Perth. I think you can actually fly direct now, can't you, as well? So, but still, that's a hell of a, particularly if you're, you know, got a dodgy hamstring or, you know, a knee problem or whatever, you know, all that pressure for so many hours. Don't know. I just thought I'd just put it out there and get your thoughts on that, because it's although it's almost like a not a flippant thing, but it was sort of relatively. Oh, and by the way, we're going to Australia. I think when I looked at it a little bit, I was thinking about it. I thought, well, at first I thought it's really cool. It's really nice to do something like that. You know, we've got lots of Australian fans who watch the channel, or fans who live in Australia. A few of them already contacted us and saying they're flying across and they've put their flights and stuff, which is fantastic. I think the pre-season, I think you can apply for tickets now to be on the list, and I think they go in the general sale on Monday, I believe. But the practicalities of it, particularly from a footballing perspective, you know, Moisey don't like doing that. And I'll leave you with that comment. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the fact there's no West Ham. Or I don't know if you will enjoy it, because like the missus might know that there's no football and might get you to go out the bathroom or whatever. Guess what I'm doing? Anyway, here's a little insight to my life. Anyway, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith, my friends. Come on, you Irons. Keep an eye on all the social stuff this weekend. Some really interesting, really cool stuff we'll be announcing in association with the Irons Food Banks in the next, or today probably. So take care. Bye bye. Much love. Bye bye.